Hello folks, I hope that you're having a great day today. Today we're going to be reviewing for you In Amundsen's Tent by John Martin Leahy. This is a gentleman who published a little bit during the pulp era. He had some things. For example, in the 1920s, he published 3 novels, 2 of which were published for Weird Tales, and sort of sequentially over parts, and were serialized, and a final one that was published for science fiction intervention. So he was someone who had a lot of weird tales. He also had a few short stories that were published in Weird Tales in the pulp era. And we'll be taking a look at his 1928 short story, In Amundsen's Tent. Now this is in my collection of short stories by H.P. Lovecraft's favorite stuff. Now, as we've talked about before, this is a collection of basically 2 sections in this thing. The first one is the literary weird tale here that you can see. This one has all the sort of classics by, you know, A. Merritt, Algernon Blackwood, Arthur Machen, right, Edgar Allan Poe, or all these things here down here. And down here is a section of the literary weird tale. These are short stories that were written, there are 6 of them total, that he wrote in the early 30s. He was writing to other writers, fans. He actually wrote a thing to Weird Tales proper for the 10th anniversary issue, where he went back and read all of his old back catalogs and said these are the best short stories. And In Amundsen's Tent is one of the best short stories that he felt that he had read in this collection. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a look at it. Now, for context, In Amundsen's Tent is going to be set in Antarctica. It's written in 1928 when the chase for the South Pole was still a big topic of current stuff. It had only happened a few years ago in 1925, and there were 2 expeditions that had been launched to get to the South Pole in Antarctica. The one that was successful was by a Norwegian explorer named Amundsen, among whom this title of the story is. And then there was another guy, an English guy, who came in. He found Amundsen's tent. He actually stayed in it for a night. He actually Amundsen left him a note, a letter, for him to read, because he thought he would be following it up with him after leaving this tent near the South Pole. And then the follow-up explorer again finds it. He leaves a letter too, and then he launches an expedition to the pole a couple of days later. He arrives at the pole, but then unfortunately his expedition dies on the way back, and they're never heard from again. So this weird horror short story set in Antarctica sort of assumes that there was actually a 3rd expedition that was happening, that was going through a different path. And there's going to be a group of 3 people that are going to be exploring the expedition. Now we're going to find out that somebody actually found, a follow-up explorer has found a tent in a place that there was no tent to be found. And this is the framing device for the story. And they arrive at this tent that was from clearly a 3rd expedition that have been there for a while, and they just were not sure who would have set this up. And then once they start doing exploring, they find out that there was a 3rd expedition, and that one of the members of the expedition, his decapitated head is in this tent, which obviously leads to the question of what happened. At first they suspect maybe some of the dogs on the sled may have eaten the rest of the body. That's their first supposition, but as they start to look at the head that's decapitated, it doesn't appear to be the case. And then they decide to sit out and read his journal to find out what had happened. So the setup plot then is that this failed expedition was going through a different route. It was a competitor to the 2 expeditions that we know about. And then we're going to find out that one of them had a decapitated head in this tent, and left his journal as well. So we're going to find out what actually happened on the adventure from the journal proper. And then for the rest of it, you're going to be reading the journal and reading the events of what happened according to one of the explorers of this ill-fated hypothetical 3rd expedition to the South Pole. So that's kind of the narrative for telling this story by Leahy. Now, I do like this. I think it's very well done. I give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's very, very strong. I will definitely link you to this collection below so you can check it out. This is my final of the 6 short stories that I've reviewed for you from this collection. I'll try to find it online for you. Most of the time, these older collections, our older stories, are past their copyright date. But they're not always online. In fact, for one of these stories earlier, in this collection, I actually failed to find it online. But for most of them, I have. So we'll see if I can find In Amundsen's Tent for you, and thus kind of head it out to you. Now, while I was reading this, I kind of had a little bit of a feel of H.P. Lovecraft's epic At the Mountains of Madness, which is also an expedition that's created by Miskatonic University that will come across some Cthulhu Mythos things, which I've actually reviewed for you, so I'll actually link you to At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. Obviously, it was written after this short story, and Lovecraft enjoyed this story enough that it's one of his top, horror stories of all time. So clearly, right, this guy was probably influenced by it. And I definitely saw some similarities between the two stories. So if you're somebody who likes the Cthulhu Mythos, has read At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft, and you want to see maybe where he got some of his ideas from, then you would definitely want to check out In Amundsen's Tent by John Martin Leahy, which was written in 1928, a few years prior to At the Mountains of Madness in the 30s. So I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read At Amundsen's Tent? I would be happy to talk to you more about it in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree with my comments on the story, or if there's something in the story that you would like to talk about further. I would love to do that with you in the comments below. If you liked this video, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button, because there's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And finally, hey, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions, right? So the fact that you spent this time with me, man, that's humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have a great day.